Hello. All right. Thanks everyone for your patience. My name is Charlie DA, and I'm the Associated Student Government Academic Chair. A few reminders before we begin. First of all, this event will be recorded. And second of all, if you're here with Lee, please see me after the event for the sign-in sheet. All right, thank you all for coming to the last lecture series. This is a program brought to you by ASG every quarter to honor exceptional faculty members who are leaving the university or significantly impacted the students' lives thus far. They're inspired by the prompting question: if this were your last time to address a group of students, what would you say to them? Today, Sean O'Keefe will share with us his answer. Mr. O'Keefe grew up in the Bay Area. He earned his undergraduate degree from UC Santa Barbara and his MBA right here at Santa Clara University. He has worked for a number of Bay Area sports teams, including the Oakland A's, San Francisco 49ers, San Francisco Giants, and now he is a lecturer in business communication and the Lead Scholars Program, and he's launching a business and nonprofit focused on career advising. Additionally, and most importantly, he's a husband and father of 2 kids. So without further ado, I present to you Professor O'Keefe on how to rethink YOLO.
Thank you, Charlie. Hold up. Can you turn it up there a little bit? Because I have a tendency to get excited and speak about it. You guys aren't too far away, so. Great. Nice to be here. I'm wondering if I'm going to stick with the mic or not. I think we'll continue on with it. All right. So for those who don't know, the Less Lecture series has been around at universities across the country for many, many years. It became really popular in 2007 when a professor from Carnegie Mellon University was diagnosed with terminal cancer and then gave his true last lecture before he passed. So if you want to YouTube it, you can look it up. It's Randy Bosch. Very, very moving talk. So these last lecture series, they're going on before and they'll continue on. And I'm privileged to be here tonight to give you my perspective. So I decided to title mine Rethink YOLO. And for those familiar faces in here, you know that I use this term in my class. One, I'm a rap fan. I like hip hop music, and I'm familiar with the term. I'm familiar with the musician. And I know most students, when they hear YOLO, they think of Drake. And I don't blame him. Also, most students, think about doing something crazy or making an extravagant expense or something crazy, right? You only live once, might as well do it. Okay? Well, tonight I'm going to say, let's rethink YOLO. Let's look at it in a different context. So let's talk about what it means to win the game of life. If you're at Santa Clara University, you're competitive by nature. You wouldn't have gotten into this university if you weren't competitive. I'm a competitive person, so I like to look at life as a game that I'm trying to win. So if you're trying to win something, it's like, okay, well, how do you win? So for me, and this doesn't have to be for you, but for me, there's 7 pillars. Career, education, and when you're done with your formal education, personal development, spirituality, health, family and friends, contribution to society, and lifestyle. So you can adopt these if you like. If you don't, you can have 3, you could have 5, you could have 15 if you want. But I would suggest that you kind of think about your life and what is most important to you. And then after you do this, I would say you want to evaluate yourself, either every year, maybe every quarter, maybe it's every 2 years. For me, my wife and I, every year. We set goals in all the different pillars of life, and then at the end of the year, we give ourselves a grade. How do we do? I'll tell you, especially in your 20s, it is extremely difficult to be able to give yourself an A in all the different areas of life. I mean, for me, there were years it was practically impossible. So there's 3 years in my mid-20s when I was working full-time and I went to school at night. And I was driving from my home in the East Bay to Oakland, down here to Santa Clara to get my MBA. I put 30,000 miles in my car. I would get to work at 7:30 a.m., which means I was up earlier than that. I'd drive down here after work. I'd go to work, I'd come to school till 8 or 9 o'clock and drive home at 10 o'clock, right? So you can imagine doing that a couple times a week, having tests and studying. You guys know what that's like. Trying to get workouts in, trying to have some time for spirituality, fit in family and friends. There's not enough hours in a week sometimes in your 20s when you're putting in a lot of effort at your career. So you'll make sacrifices at times during life. I had to settle for some B's and C's in here. Now, the idea though is to get to a point where you can achieve A's in all areas. So the ingredients needed to win, and you're going to see this slide multiple times. So these are things I want to talk about tonight, and you're going to hear this. You're going to hear about these things through stories about myself and through stories of former students. Listening to your intuition, being intentional, stepping out of your comfort zone, putting in the extra effort. So my hope is that I enable some of you to take action, enable some dreams, overcome some fear and doubts, because I know how it's easy to get caught up in our mind not to take action. And so I want to inspire that tonight. So I'm going to start off talking about the first pillar, which is career. That's a lot on your mind, as the majority of the people in here are college students, so career is important to you. And graduating from this university, it's not a problem getting a job. It's not. Some of you guys, there's some students who have a fear that they won't get a job. Everyone's highly employable with a degree from this university. You're going to get a job. The question is, can you land a dream job? So let me tell you a little bit about my story. As an undergrad, I was a BNC student. I was an introvert. I'm still introverted. I've learned to be extroverted because I know it's helpful in business. I'm not articulate. I'll probably lose my train of thought tonight and ask you where I left off, so don't be surprised if that happens. But I really was inarticulate when I was your age. And up until January of my junior year, I had no clarity on what I wanted to do with my life and my career. And yes, that's me. I was a wannabe M&M, bleached hair, and you can't tell in that picture, but I had acne so bad I wore concealer makeup to cover it up. So that's where I started. I'm going to tell you this quick story about selling Cutco kitchen knives. Some of you probably heard of this organization because they heavily recruit college students. And when you're listening to the story, don't think about, oh well, turn off the story because I don't want to be in sales. That's not for me. Just kind of think about how this story might mean something to you. So I started off my college career not at first year at UC Santa Barbara. I went to community college for my first year. And so it's kind of a funny story why I went to community college. I had the grades to qualify for a UC school or a private school out of high school, but I was so caught up in high school football that I didn't apply anywhere. And so I woke up January after football season was over and all the application dates were passed me by. So anyways, so I started going to community college, and I'm coming out of my car one day, and there's a flyer on my windshield that says $14.10 an hour. I'm like, this is 1998. I don't know what that, you guys are way smarter than me, so you finance majors can figure out what that extrapolates to today. But that was a lot of money, and it said flexible schedule, and I was like, that sounds good. And my dad, so my parents were disappointed that I went to community college, and they just wanted me to transfer. They said, you're living at home, you don't have to have a job. But my dad, always growing up, always told my sister and I, he went to Berkeley in the 70s, he was a hippie. He always said, have an open mind, to my sister and I. So I had this thought in the back of my head when I'm seeing this flyer for $14.10 an hour, flexible schedule, have an open mind. So I didn't have to have a job. I was like, I'm going to call this thing. Well, when you call for the job, they don't tell you on the phone that you're going to be selling kitchen knives because not many people will show up for the interview. They tell you, oh, it's this marketing position, come in for an interview. So I went in for the interview, and I'm so dense that even after the first in-person interview, I still didn't know it was kitchen knives. But I did know that the guy who was potentially going to hire me, he was young, he was articulate, he was good looking, and he drove a really nice Lexus out front. So I was like, I don't know exactly what this job is, but I signed up for 3 days of training. And it actually worked out really well. And I was terrible. It was a sales job, and I was reading my manual, and I was really bad. But this guy was the first person besides my parents who believed in me before I believed in myself. And that meant so much. And he probably didn't actually mean that to me. He probably told everyone that, because he's a sales manager. So he was just gassing me up, making me feel good, because if I perform, then he makes more money. But I believed it. And so I did that during college. And then my life changed January of my junior year. So I majored in communication, I minored in sports management. And I'm sitting in class, winter quarter, and the professor gave a talk, and it just woke me up. It was my wake-up call. And so, Professor Ferrer, if you ever watch this video, this one's for you. I'm going to share this talk that he gave in class one day that was my wake-up call. I'm not a great artist, you can already tell. You guys know what that is? You're Santa Clara undergraduates. You don't know what that is? It's your life. This is your life. All right, let me explain. So we're going to break it down into 4 quadrants. You know, from the time you're born to your 20, your 20s and 30s, your 40s and 50s, and then 60 plus. Okay? So this first stage of life, Professor Ferrer called absorption. So from the time you're little, you're learning new things. You're learning new skills, you're learning how to talk, you're learning how to crawl, you're learning how to walk. You go to school, you might pick up another language. You're learning math, you're learning how to write. You get older, you get into your teenage years. You might have your first boyfriend or girlfriend, you might have your first heartbreak, you might drive your car. Right? You have all these experiences, you're learning all these subjects in school. You're absorbing knowledge and skills in this phase of life. Then there's the second phase of life, and we're going to call this implementation. Let me go back to the first quadrant. When you were in elementary school, a couple of you raise your hand. What did you want to be? You had your whole life in front of you, and a lot of you had an idea of what you wanted to be when you grew up in your elementary school.
So I didn't remember that my mom texted me a picture today, but I heard saying I want to be a probation officer.
Okay?
Yeah, so that's changed radically since.
Okay. Anyone else? Hey, Charlie. An astronaut. Okay. Great. Okay.
I want to be a teacher.
Teacher. Okay, great. Do you still want to be a probation officer?
Yeah.
No. Okay. Astronaut? No? And teacher? Oh. And that's fine. And there are some people that they knew what they wanted to be when they were in elementary school, and they still want to be that when they're sitting here as undergraduates. But for most people, it changes. And it's likely going to change again. So whatever your dream job is right now, I'm guessing in 5 to 10 years, probably 5, it'll change again. And certainly it will change sometime, not certainly. Most likely it will change again at some point in your career. But now, as you sit here tonight, whether you're a freshman, sophomore, first year, sophomore, junior, senior, you have an idea of what your dream job is. And maybe you don't. Maybe you have no clarity. Maybe if you have interest, but you have no idea what your dream job is. And that part about intuition, I'm waiting for my intuition to kick in to tell me what I want to do. And that's okay, if that's where you are. But now you know what you want to achieve. And so as you enter this next phase of life, I actually have a different name for this. It's not as academic as implementation. One of my former students want to share what the name of this, what else I call this quadrant? Yeah.
Put up or shut up?
Yes. Put up or shut up. Because the fact of the matter is, there's so many people now are in their college years, they talk about what they want to achieve. They talk about wanting to land a dream job or what their dream career is. And some people will go on to do it, they'll put up, they'll do it, they'll achieve. And some people won't, and they'll have to shut their mouth and go a different direction. Okay, moving on. The third quadrant here, in your 40s and 50s. This is called reflection. I have another name for this quadrant as well. You got this one too? So let me ask before I go to Ryan. what do some people call that time in life, and when people in their 40s or 50s? Is like a term for it?
Midlife crisis?
Midlife crisis. Think about that. Midlife crisis. I don't want anyone in this room to have a midlife crisis. That sounds horrible. But the reality is, a lot of people do. A lot of people wake up in their 40s and 50s, and they hate their job, or they're divorced, their kids hate them, they're alcoholic, like bad things. So, in this last stage of life, 60 plus, this is wisdom. So as you sit here tonight, you have goals and you have dreams. And when I heard this, this was my wake-up call. It was like, holy crap, it's junior year of college, and I have no idea what I want to do with my career. I had zero clue. And luckily, this professor in sports management class is talking about the circle of life. It has nothing, obviously, to do with sports. So later in that class, he said, I have good news for 5 of you. I have internships with sports teams up and down the West Coast, and I get 5 of you internships. Who here is interested? You can imagine everyone raised their hand. It's a class of sports management minors. And he had 3 classes of 80, so he had 5 internships for 100, or 3 classes of 60. 5 internships for 180. So he's like, the only fair way I know how to give out the internships is to the best students. And I was like, well, you guys saw it. That wasn't me. I wasn't one of the best students for sure. He said, if you're not one of the best students, but you're a hard worker, come to my office hours and I'll help you increase your chances of landing a job with a sports team. So I was like, hard worker, that's me. I had a paper route when I was 13. I worked at Chuck E. Cheese, and then after that, I worked some retail jobs. I was like, I know how to work hard. So I showed up to his office hours, and he gave me some help. And at first, I started doing what everyone else does. I just applied online. And you can imagine how that turned out. Rejection letter, rejection letter, rejection letter, rejection letter, rejection letter, and this is just a few of them. You guys don't even get rejection letters in the mail now, everything's just email. Has anyone actually got something in the mail? Yeah, it doesn't even happen. Yeah. Huh? Oh, okay. So yeah, I wanted to work for a Bay Area sports team, and the developer basically said thanks for no thanks. Then I landed an actual interview for an internship. My favorite sport is football, and my favorite football team is the Oakland Raiders. I know they're really bad. There'll be better days. But in that interview, I said this phrase, ghetto fabulous. I was like, as soon as the words left my mouth, I was like, if you ever make a worse, I tell every class I've ever taught, if you ever make a worse mistake than this, please let me know. We'll go have lunch and we'll laugh at it together. So I got asked the question, how well do you work with different types of people? And I was thinking like, well, the words that came out of my mouth was, well, I've worked with the really wealthy and also the ghetto families. Like I knew as soon as the words went out of my mouth, I was just trying to pull them back in, and it was too late. I was supposed to meet with 2 people that day. I said that with the first woman, and I never met with the second person. In fact, that job interview, that internship interview, finished within the 5 minutes of me saying that. Like it was over. Like she didn't touch me, but I felt like I got pulled out of the room by my ear. But I tell you that story for a reason. One is you probably can't make a mistake worse than me. But even if you make mistakes, keep going. Like so we're going to talk about mindset tonight. Some people in their mind will go, woe is me, or I'm not good enough, or it wasn't meant to be, right? It's so easy to rationalize things. A lot of people pursuing their dream, like for me, so I told you like hip hop music. So Eminem had this famous song. Anyone seen the movie 8 Mile? Okay, I see some head nods. So in that movie, the soundtrack that goes with one of the main scenes of the movie is, in the soundtrack, in the song it says, if you had one shot or one opportunity to seize everything you ever wanted in one moment, would you capture it or would you let it slip? Yeah. my dream internship, I let it slip. However, I had heard this quote actually in a sales meeting with my Cutco job. And this quote actually got me through it. My parents couldn't tell me anything that would help me. I relied on this quote. And so if you are sitting in the front, you got this as a gift. There's some extra seats up here, so grab one if you like. Take it home with you. But while one person hesitates because he or she feels inferior, another is busy making mistakes and becoming superior. Now, if you're a brain surgeon, you don't want to live by this quote. But for a college student trying to land internships and jobs, like you can get so caught up in like paralysis by analysis, right? You guys got to start taking action. And I did one of the worst things ever. Oops, don't worry. By making this mistake. And this quote actually gave me strength to keep going on and not giving up on my pursuit. So another term for this quote is don't talk about it, be about it. Right? Yes. Yeah, the Great Bay Area hip-hop legend before. So whether you want to internalize the Henry C. Link quote or the E40 quote, let's get to the mechanics of it. So if you really want to get a dream job, it's going to be competitive because there's other people that probably want that same dream job. So you can't just do what everybody else does, apply online, go to Career Center. You got to do more. So I'm going to tell you a quick story, medium-length story, about what the coaching that I took from my professor. So I knew that applying wasn't working online, and I knew I wanted to work for one of the 5 area sports teams. So I was smart, not a great student, but I was smart enough to realize that C-level executives, they don't hire interns. Entry-level employees, they don't hire interns. It's that mid-level, director-level title, for the most part, that hires interns. And so I was okay. Well, I'm gonna like print my resume on thick paper like this on cardstock, and I'm gonna print my cover letter, and then I'm gonna get big envelopes because you're not gonna fold thick paper like this. I'm gonna get those 9 by 12 envelopes, and I'm gonna get a Sharpie, and I'm gonna handwrite. I'm gonna send out 30 of these. I'm gonna find out the director of finance, the director of operations, marketing, sales, community relations, whatever. 6 people at all 5 area sports teams, and I'm gonna put these in the mail. Like everyone else is applying online, I'm gonna zig when there's that. And so my professor and I came up with a strategy, and we sent out all 30 thinking we'd get like a handful of responses. We got 0. And I was deflated. So I walk into his office hours like 10 days later, and I go, I got 0 responses. He's like, that doesn't surprise me. I was like, wait, you thought like I'd get like 3 or 4 or 5? He's like, yeah, I told you that, but I was hopeful, but because I wanted to make sure you went through with it, but it doesn't surprise me that you don't. He's like, it's no big deal. He's like, you know what you need to do next, right? I was like, no. He's like, well, you just got to call him. I was like, call him. My heart dropped. Call him? These are like people that have dream jobs and that I would idolize and have, in these positions. And he's like, you can't get on the phone and call and say, hi, this is Sean from UC Santa Barbara. I sent you I sent you my resume in the mail. Did you get it? I was like, yeah, I can say that. He's like, and then once if they say yes, you're just going to say, what do you recommend as the next step? And if they say no, you say, can I email it to you? He's like, can't you do that? I was like, yeah, I can. So for the next 3 days, because I had 30 people to call, I called 10 people for 3 days in a row. And I got to tell you, even though he's like, yeah, you rationalized it to me, it was still scary as heck to actually pick up the phone. I had to stand up. I remember I couldn't even sit down. I had to sit in my dorm room and call. And anyways, I made it work. Some people said call me next week. Some people said call HR. Some people said call me next year. Some people never called me back. Everything in between. And so after 8 weeks of either once a week, either calling all 30 people until I got a hard no, or sending an email, after 8 or 9 weeks, Lisa Wood in the marketing department for the Oakland A's, she said, you know what, Sean, you've been professionally persistent. I can't get HR to approve an intern, but I could really use one this summer. If you want to come in on Tuesdays and Thursday afternoons from 12 to 4, and you do a good job, you can put Oakland A's on your resume, and I'll give you a letter back at the end of the summer. I was like, sweet, because I had told her I'll work 1 day a week, I'll work 7 days a week. I just want to get a sports team on my resume. And so I did. I went in Tuesdays and Thursdays, 12 to 4, and it just gave me time on the other days to sell my Cutco niche kitchen knives and make some money. And it was my foot in the door. Then, my last day of my internship was actually a historic day in this country. It was September 11th, 2001. I was driving in for my last day of the internship, and she called me, and she's like, hey, we got you a cake, but I don't know if you know, but heard on the news. I said, yeah, I've heard on the news. She's like, yeah, it's chaos around here. Why don't you just drive home, and next time, when you're back for Christmas break, we'll meet up or something. I said, okay. So I get back to school, a quarter system, like a week later, and then I started making calls to everyone that hadn't given me a hard no. So I want to get a second internship. I'm feeling good about myself now. I got LNAs on my resume. I'm gonna leverage this. So there was this one guy with the San Francisco 49ers who always told me there's an internship available every winter quarter, but it's always a son or a daughter, a niece, nephew, like next door neighbor that gets the internship because it's highly sensitive information. Well, and because I've been talking to him since January when I first started making my calls, and now it's September. And he would always pick up the phone. Like some people just are like that. 49ers, this is Drew. 49ers, this is Drew. And so I had talked to him multiple times, so I was like, you know what, I got to put a face to a name because a phone relationship doesn't matter a whole lot. So I said, you know what, Drew, I'm going to be driving home for Thanksgiving in a couple months. Can I stop off the freeway and just put a face to the name? And he said, yeah. So a couple more days before Thanksgiving, I was driving home, got off the freeway. I only spent about 15 minutes with him, but we established that face-to-face relationship. And he said, we don't have anyone that's close to the family for this internship. He said, if we, decide to open up an interview process, I can't guarantee the position, but I'll make sure that you get an invite to interview. So sweet. So fast forward to January of 2002, 49ers lose to the Green Bay Packers, and like 2 days later, I got a phone call saying Terry Donahue, the general manager, and Steve Mariucci, the head coach, want to meet with you. I was like, sweet. So I drove myself up from Santa Barbara, interviewed, got offered a paid internship, 40 hours a week. The great thing, I told you when I started at community college, I took so many units that I was ahead on units. So I actually took, instead of graduating a quarter early, I took winter quarter off, still graduated in June, but I took winter quarter off, moved in with my parents, and then drove down to Santa Clara to their facility and interned. 40 hours a week, I had access to a weight room. For those of you who are sports fans, they took me to the combine. I had a stopwatch clocking every college player that was eligible for the draft that year in the 40-yard dash. Every player had to bench press 225 pounds as many times as they could. I'm standing right there, had my own hotel room, crazy internship. And so I leveraged those, and I did a short internship with the San Francisco Giants. And I leveraged those into a full-time job with the Oakland A's after I graduated, where I worked for 7 years. So those results. Yeah, so this kid, this M&M wannabe with no connections to any of the sports teams, landed internships, and none of the internships were even posted online. There wasn't they basically had created them out of thin air. So that's the crazy thing about relationships. If you build relationships with the right people, good things happen. And then obviously today I teach here, and then I'm also an advisor and a career coach for some programs at UC Berkeley. So we talked about at the start the ingredients to win. So as you listen to my story, you're going to obviously have a different path. But I didn't. So listening to your intuition about a career, I didn't realize what my calling in life was until I was 30, which is to teach and coach college students. So when I was your age, I was like, okay, if I don't know what my calling is, I don't know my vocation, then I'm just going to do something that's cool. And so for me, what was cool was trying to find a job in sports, and specifically in a sales department, because I had success selling kitchen knives. I was like, if I could sell kitchen knives, I could definitely sell a sports team. And then obviously you could hear things about being very intentional, like being proactive. I had to step out of my comfort zone. And it's a lot scarier than I made it just seem. And obviously putting in the extra effort. Because there's college students across the country that are graduating the same year you're going to graduate, that's applying for the same internships you are. You got to go the extra mile. And I know, you can have fears and uncertainty, doubt in your mind, and it's hard to get over. So between the quote and stories and listening to podcasts, like reading books, you got to get out of your mind and just start taking action. There's this term called imposter syndrome. If you haven't heard of this, It's basically I'm not good enough, but it's like I'm not good enough even when you've already achieved. Like so, this is me, I had imposter syndrome so bad. This is when I was in my mid-20s when I was going to business school here. Even though I got into the business school, I feel like I probably had, I'll never know because I can't see behind the curtain, but I probably had one of the lowest GMAT scores in GPA, undergrad GPA of any MBA student here. And it's crazy now I teach here, right? And I was so insecure during my business school. I grew out my hair. I don't have any pictures from that time in my life. But I grew out my hair like Brad Pitt used to have it, and like tucked it down here. And it wasn't really a good look for me, but I felt like, and then you can't see it, not in this picture, but I bought glasses without prescription and wore them just so I could look older. I was so insecure about not fitting in with all these smart MBA students that I grew out my hair and bought glasses without prescriptions to make myself look older. And I know from talking with students, some of the undergrads feel that way. It's like I got into Santa Clara, but I'm not so sure, I'm really good enough. And some of you guys might have gotten into internships already, and you look around and you have these thoughts in your head of doubt, and it's normal. These feelings of self-doubt, they're normal. But when you have uncertainty and fears and concerns, you always got to, let me just encourage you, think about what do you have to lose? Like, right? So like when my professor said, can't you call these people? And he's like, here's what you need to say. He's like, yeah, I can do that. And then the other part of what he said to me is like, why would you not? The worst thing that they can do is tell you no. No, they didn't receive it, and no, they're not interested in you being an intern. Okay, well, scratch them off the list. That's why we made a list of 30 people. So think about downside versus the potential upside. Another quote relates to fears. Maybe you've heard this, Marianne Williamson. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? Sit with that for a second. Maybe you can relate to this. You're scared of what it would be. Maybe not scared. Maybe. Of like how great you really can be and what that would mean. All right, so specific thing about being intentional. Let me give you something I like to teach, and I told you talked about me a lot so far, and I'm going to get into talking about other people because that's why I'm here as a teacher at this university. Well, I'm going to give you something really tangible that you can do right away. So some of you guys might have seen this. One of the most famous TED Talks ever, Simon Sinek. He wrote a book called Start With Why. And in this TED Talk, he talks about the what, the how, and the why. And the big mistake that people make when they talk to others is they talk about the what, then the how, and the why. And he says that's idiotic, in his opinion. You should do the opposite. You should start with the why, the how, and then the what. Let me give a real quick example because there's a lot of stuff in it, and I want to keep it moving here. And I know we got a late start. So you're at an event, or you're going to be asked this question a ton of times as a student and thousands of times in your career. You meet someone and they go, what do you do? Right now you're most likely to say, well, I'm a finance major, I'm a chemistry major at Santa Clara University, and I'm a junior, or something like that. And Simon Sinek, and I would encourage you not to say that. That could be like part B or C in your answer, but start with why. What do you do? Well, I'm passionate about teaching and coaching college students. And then you can get to, I'm a lecturer at Santa Clara University and I do some career coaching and advising at UC Berkeley. But don't start with that. Start with the why. If you can think about other things, but if you don't have something in your mind as a default, I would just say, I'm passionate about. Let that be how you answer the question, what do you do? I'll tell you a story about this, how it paid dividends to me. This was before Simon Sinek gave the talk. This is like 13, 14 years ago. I'm at the gym. And I usually have my headphones in when I go to the gym, but listen to my hip hop music. But sometimes I'm like, it'd be smart to make small talk with other people. And I was going to a gym at the time in an affluent area. I was like, and I was a salesperson for the Oakland A's. There's probably some potential clients around here I could be building relationships with. So one day I'm sitting on a bench, and I decided to be intentional about making conversation with the guy next to me. And I told him, yeah, I'm really excited and passionate about, let me say I said passionate about, but I'm really excited that I'm taking this trip to China and Korea as part of my MBA program. And then we started talking. So 5 minutes later, I just met this guy. He says, oh, our company has an offices in China. Where are you going to be? I was like, Shanghai, Beijing, and Hong Kong. He's like, are you going to do some sightseeing? I was like, we don't have a whole lot of time because it's, we're tax schedule. But when we finish in Beijing, we're going to stay a couple extra days. He's like, oh, I'd love to take care of you and set you up with a driver in a black car, in a town car. All because I just decided to open my mouth. Like, it's crazy. And like, so you think about the story of landing internships out of thin air. If you just talk about what you're passionate about and what you're up to in the world, and you say it, you tell enough people want to help others. I have a whole talk, and we don't have time tonight to get into that. All right, let's keep it moving. So I guess, right, if you walked out right now, I would just say, I would encourage you to take control. You have nothing to lose by pursuing, I guess, college students, pursue your dream internships, pursue your dream job. If you want to get a great job after college, after you graduate, the best way to land that job is to get an internship with that company first, right? They get to know you, you build a reputation, you get an inside track. All right, now let me talk about contributions to society. Last week we celebrated MLK Day. And he's famous for asking the question, what are you doing for others? I like to think about this, and I've heard different quotes about serving others throughout my life. Another one that I like is, you'll get all that you want if you help enough others get what they want. So consider those two quotes and think about how in your life you plan on serving others. So when I was young, I was really intrinsically motivated. What I cared about was the logo on my business card. I cared about how much money I was going to make. I cared about what other people thought of me. That was just where I was in life. I didn't know if I had no discernment around having a calling or a vocation. So I just picked something I was interested in and I pursued it. But then I realized 5 years, if I was 19 in junior year, or 20, so like 4 years later though, I realized I don't want to work in sports the rest of my life. So I was like, okay, I wasn't a great student early in my career. I'm going to go back to school and get my MBA. And so I purposely got my MBA to be able to transition. So my first job after finishing my MBA, I leveraged it, and I went to work for this company called Shamrock Office Solutions. So this company sells copiers and printers. Baseball, very attractive industry. Copiers and printers, not a very attractive industry. But I'll tell you what, I did 7 years with the Oakland A's, and I had 7 years with the Shamrock Office Solutions. I had more fulfillment in my 7 years with Shamrock Office Solutions because I was extrinsically motivated. I wanted to serve others. I also had selfish motivation, but in a good way. I wanted to prove that I could be a leader. I wanted to prove that I could run a division of a company and grow a business substantially. I wanted to prove myself that I could do that. So I got this vice president job of a smaller company and had a lot of success, and it was very rewarding because I was doing it for the right reasons because I wanted to build others up. We've mostly recruited recent college grads and built the company through their success. So I told you about that trip to China and Korea for study abroad. And so I'm going to get to some stories about other students which you'll be able to relate to, probably even more than me, in a second. But this is talking about contribution to society, right? One of the 7 pillars of life. So I have had a debt of gratitude to that college professor, Alpha Rare, ever since I had that lecture. And he went over the circle of life with me and inspired me to land those internships. So on the plane flight to Korea, I had a seat on the plane during this study abroad program. I had a seat on the plane next to the dean of the business school, Barry Posner. If you ever watched this, shout out, thank you. And I was very lucky to be sitting next to you. So on the plane flight to Korea, there's a lot of time to talk. So he says to me, hey Sean, who hooked you up with your job at the A's? It's like, offended. No, there's no hookup here. And I went on to tell him a longer version of the story that I told you. I said, yeah, I'm so grateful for this professor that I want to start a nonprofit. I want to give back. I want to go around to colleges and community colleges and give workshops on teaching students don't rely on the career center or what jobs are posted on Handshake or whatever the flavor of the day is for online job postings. be proactive, be intentional about pursuing the jobs you want. And I believe what I did is transferable, whether you want to work in technology, investment banking, consulting, nonprofit, benefit corporation, like whatever your dream job is. I believe this methodology that I created can help students. He said, Sean, I don't know anything about starting a nonprofit, but I think you'd be a great fit to be an adjunct lecturer. I was 27 at the time. I'm thinking in my head, I still feel like a beer-drinking college undergrad. I do not feel in my mind like could be an adjunct professor. So I didn't say that, right? On the plane, I'm thinking to myself, wow, that'd be amazing. He's like, well, you got to finish your MBA. Once you have the degree, I can't guarantee the job, but if you come back to me, I'll get you into the interview process. So I graduated, followed up, said I'm interested, got the interview, nailed the interview, started teaching. And the very first night, in January of 2010, that I taught my first class in Casa Italiana, I had this overwhelming feeling like this is what I'm meant to do with my life. Like I just knew that, and I didn't change careers for another 5 years, but I knew that this is what I'm meant to do. And so for a long time, I thought I'll change careers in my 50s because I can't possibly take the pay cut from going from the VP of Business Development job to lecturer type salary. Well, you know, one of the lessons that I want you to leave today with is listen to your intuition. So 5 years later, I've been teaching like 1 or 2 classes at night. You know, after I finished my day job at Shamrock, I would drive down here at night and teach. The person I reported to at the university, he left, and he actually recommended me for the position. They did a nationwide search, and I landed the job. There were some really tough conversations that my wife and I had to have. Not like tough, like adversarial, but tough as like we're gonna have to make a lot of sacrifices to make this work. Because while I had a lot of financial success in my job, I'm not IPO rich, and I don't have family money. So like to be able to pursue my calling took some major sacrifices. And again, let these things, as you're hearing different stories, think about how these can relate to your life. All right, now let's get to things that you might be experiencing or we're going to be experiencing depending on where you're at in your college career. So 3 common problems that college students make when trying to land their dream job or dream internship is just strictly applying online, having no connections, or having no clarity. So maybe you're like Yuli, my last student there, who had no clarity. If you have no clarity, if you're someone who is in that boat right now, I want you to give some thought. What are your gifts? I certainly, when I was your age, I didn't have gifts. So I had to cross that one off. Strengths. I'm not so sure I have any strengths. Experiences? Yeah, I gained them as I got the internships. But before I had the internships, always like, okay, as far as like doing something that's, following your intuition, I guess the only thing that resonates with me is my interest. It's like I played high school sports, I like sports. It'd be great if I could find a way to make money somehow in the sports industry. So that's how, that's the path I went. So give that some thought if you're looking for clarity. So taking control. So let me tell you about these 5 students that I just showed you. Yuli, Kevin, Lydia, Alex, and Juan. So Yuli, she had no clarity. Her parents came to the United States and they moved to Seattle. She was raised in Seattle, Mexican heritage. She grew up in like a suburban neighborhood in Seattle and went to like an all-white school, and she grew up rejecting her culture. Like to the extent that she made herself hate Mexican food. And later in college, she realized that she didn't like herself for having those thoughts when she was younger. And she was an accounting major. So those in business school, she decided to switch her major senior year. She had already been offered Big Four and actually accepted. And then realized, you know what? I don't want to do it. I don't feel like her intuition was telling her, don't do it. So instead of graduating with a really nice job, first generation college student, and disappointing her parents, she went home after graduation to Seattle without a job. And then woke up one morning during summer after graduation and was like, I want to go live in Mexico. I want to basically she never used these terms with me, but atone for my sins, I guess, or make up for the way I felt when I was younger. I want to live in Mexico City, and I'd love to get a job with a venture capital firm in the social impact space. Yuli moves to Mexico just on intuition, to Mexico City. Starts using some of the methods that I teach about following this blueprint of being intentional, and landing dream jobs, seeking out informational interviews, turn those into real interviews. She lands a job at New Ventures, one of the high-profile venture capital firm. She's 24. She just came to speak in my class last week. She already has fund responsibility at her VC, a smaller fund, but she has fund responsibility. Pretty amazing story. So Kevin is a former student of mine. Kevin, his parents immigrated here from overseas. His parents, ran a donut shop, worked 6-7 days a week, like week in, week out, year after year. And Dale put him through college. He wanted to work as a sports agent. So I told you earlier in life I have a lot of flaws. I still have a lot of flaws, but I have this one thing that I think I do pretty well, which is coach and inspire and motivate students to take action, be intentional, to land their dream internships and jobs. So not only do you want to be a sports agent, he's like, I want to go find Tom Brady, one of the most popular, famous football players, and I want to find his agent, who's Don Yee, works out of an LA office. He sends a cold email to Don Yee, doesn't get back. So he comes to me, what should I do? I said, send a second email a few days later. No response. He comes to me, what should I do now? Do I give up? No. I pass down what Alpha Ray said to me. Pick up the phone, give a call. Because some people you can send 50 emails, they're not going to respond to your information or your request. But if you call, you pick up the phone, that's like gold. Like people really appreciate that. So he calls and leaves Don Yee a voicemail, gets a call back within 24 hours, says, yeah, you can come down for an informational interview. Drove from Santa Clara to LA for an informational interview, that's it. The guy was so impressed with Kevin's tenacity and the way he conducted himself during the informational interview, got offered an internship. Moved to LA, he has an uncle who lives in Riverside, did a long commute to intern for Tom Brady's agent. Dream internship. Juan, some of you guys might know Juan. Juan was one of the students with no connections. Finance major, wanted to work for a premier asset management company. And the companies that you really want to work for don't recruit here. And they don't post on Handshake. So implementing some of the strategies that were passed from Professor Ferrer to me to my students, he landed at one of his dream companies with one of the premier asset management companies. Alex Golden. Alex really wanted to work at Tesla, got an internship there, having no connections. Actually got offered a full-time job after graduation, turned it down to pursue something else. And then Lydia. Lydia was also an accounting major. She took my class, I think, fall quarter of her senior year. She had already signed and accepted a job at PwC. But she said, and she ended up going to work there, unlike Yuli. Also a first-generation college student. Lydia was like, overachiever. She's like, even though I already have my job signed, I want to maximize my senior year. I think it'd really be really cool if I could get an internship with a tech company, and especially one of the cool tech companies. Well, I was telling a story in class one day about this Google X exec, one of the co-founders, and about how I was being recruited to a startup that was invested in by this co-founder of Google X. And she's like, that guy sounds kind of cool. I'm going to cold email him. And just off one cold email, the guy responds, says, yeah, I'll take a meeting. And she goes on the informational interview, and then it turned into she followed up with the guy 2 months later, and he's like, yeah, actually one of our startups needs to build out an accounting system. Will you help us with that? So during her senior year, Tom Chi, one of the co-founders of Google X, so I have testimonials from students. I was like, I never actually told the story of the employer. But I don't have time because I know it's already getting late, and I'm going to wrap this up in a little bit. But Tom actually filmed a video talking about what it was like to get a cold email from Lydia, and obviously he was impressed. And then, this is just a small sample size of other companies that have students of mine gone on to work for without having any connections. And so, again, some of these probably recruit here, but not all these companies. So again, I tell you these stories because think about what you can do to pursue your dream positions. So I'm not going to show this video either, but you can look this up. It's only like one minute long. And it's about sometimes you pursue dream jobs and they don't work. Okay? But it actually, 5 years later, it turns out to be the best thing that never happened. And at the time, you're devastated. That might happen to you. You might have applied to a school you really wanted to get into, and you didn't get in. Maybe some of you, this Santa Clara wasn't your first choice. But you might find out in time that, as I said, not getting into that other school was the best thing that never happened to you. For The Rock, he talks about how not making the NFL was the best thing that ever happened because of the career that he's had. And he was crushed when he didn't have a career in the NFL. For me, I had that happen. When I was applying to grad school, I really wanted to get into Berkeley. Because my dad went to Berkeley. And I was crushed when it didn't happen. I even tried to get the Oakland A. I even tried to get a job there and pull some strings, and it didn't work. And for me, best thing that ever happened. I wouldn't be here tonight in front of you having this dream job at this great university if I would have went to business school like Cal. So think about this quote, and if there's extras, please come grab one on your way out. And think about the ingredients needed to win the game of life. Be open, your heart and soul, your intuition. Just be listening, because you're gonna sometimes it's a soft voice, sometimes it's loud, but follow your intuition. It pays off. Once you realize whether it's a passion, an interest, a calling, a vocation, a strength, a gift, once you realize it, be intentional, step out of your comfort zone, put in the extra effort to pursue those areas. Last thing before we leave, and this will be my quickest section, but if this truly was my last lecture, I would be remiss if I didn't include this. So this is my friend Adam Clark. He worked with me at the Oakland A's. We actually started on the same exact day. Our first day on the job as account executives was November 2002. And I just went to a celebration of life two days ago on Sunday. He got diagnosed with brain cancer in 2004, and he was told that it was malignant, and he was told he had 2 to 5 years to live. Ended up living 14. This is Elizabeth, who also worked in our same sales department at the Oakland A's. She took the job at the A's in 2006. So she met Adam knowing he had terminal brain cancer. Dated him. They married in 2010 because her intuition told her that this is the man I'm supposed to be with. And I believe, after just kind of thinking about it, that he wouldn't have lived 14 years if she didn't marry him. He might have got 5 or 7. I don't know. I'll never know, right? But I believe he lived a lot longer because of their marriage and her love for him. So tomorrow's not guaranteed. That's another reason to take action. Like, we don't know when our time's up. Like, we can get a car crash, right? And it could be over. So as you're thinking about living your best life, rethinking YOLO, right? Coming back to the beginning. YOLO's not just doing things crazy at a party or something like that, whatever you got going in your mind about Drake and YOLO. YOLO is winning the game of life. I want you to think about, every time you hear YOLO, anytime you hear that song or you hear someone say that, I want you to think, rethink it, winning the game of life. So Adam, because he was so grateful for the treatment that he received at USF, because over 14 years, every 2 to 3 years, he had to go through multiple rounds of chemo. And he was so grateful for the treatment that he had at UCSF that he decided his calling in life, his vocation, was no longer work for the Oakland A's, because he did go back to work several times, but was to leave and become a nurse so that he could give the same care to other people. And even, we found out on Sunday from his dad and his wife, even when he was going through radiation, he was still working 12-hour shifts because he was just on a hot, because that's what he was meant to do. He couldn't he couldn't not stay at home. So think about like the fact that his fight, he lives longer because her intuition says that, you know, you should marry this man. He lives longer, and then he got to be a service to others, people, you know, going through brain cancer, because he got to, you know, live his dream and become a nurse and serve others. Real quickly, this is my wife and kids, because I don't know if I got hit by a bus, and this truly ends up being the last lecture. I know that at the ceremony, celebration of life the other day, there was a letter that Adam wrote before he went into his first cancer treatment. I don't know if this video would ever get shown, so this is my wife Jacqueline, my two little kids. We met later in life, but we actually went to elementary school together. This is our 3rd grade class picture. So our last names were close to each other in the alphabet, so we were standing next to each other. I blew up the picture, and then this is like a picture of a picture, you can tell. It's a frame of me with longer hair. But anyways, so pretty cool, and I can tell you a story about being intentional. I have this thing in my home office that says the 21 secrets to happiness, and number 1, and this is just one person's opinion, but it says number 1, 90% of happiness has to do with the person you decide to marry. And it's definitely very, very important. So I'm very lucky to have, so Jacqueline and Melanie and John, if you're watching this, I love you guys. Being intentional, real quick, this story about my wife and I, real quick. You can tell I'm a very intentional person by now. This is a picture of a napkin. When my wife and I were dating, or once we were engaged, we're like, because I had bought my own home when I was 24, and we wanted to move into a different city and buy our first home together. So we were like, what do we want in a home? And I love to learn vicariously. Some of the most richest people in the world live in 3-bedroom, two-story homes. You guys can look that up. And I knew that I want to have a close-knit family. I don't know, I like this idea, even though I could afford more, to have a smaller home. So I want to live by a park. Shout out Harry Selko if you ever watched this, my fitness coach. He told me living by the park is the best thing ever if you have children and you want to be like athletic, because you could just go across the street, run sprints, you go to the playground, you go hit ground balls, you can, whatever you want to do. Living by a park is great. So we put all these things. We want a single-story home. We wanted, this says 4-bedroom. We ended up with a 3-bedroom. We didn't want to live on a busy street, etc. So we decided there's only 5 houses that we wanted to move to, and houses don't go on the market. Sometimes 30 years go by, houses don't go on the market. But we said, by the time we wrote this, we didn't have any kids. I think my wife was pregnant. Maybe not. But anyways, by the time our son gets in kindergarten, if one of those 5 houses that's in the city, in the neighborhood that we want, that's near the park, one of the 5 houses near the park, we'll get it. And if for some reason in between now and when our kid gets into elementary school, one of those 5 houses doesn't come to the market, then we'll get one of the 275 houses in the development around it. Well, lo and behold, 3 years later, not only did a house come available, the house never went on the market. The mayor of the city I would live in sold my parents their house, and the woman who was selling the house wrote in her will, or her last papers, that when it was time to sell the house for this guy to sell it. So it never really even went on the market. So anyways, being intentional. And then my mom, my dad, and my sister. I've got an amazing family. I tell everyone I won the parent lottery. I'm so lucky, and that's why I feel like it was my duty to serve others, because I've been blessed with such a great life. So many people have, everyone has starting different place. All men are created equal, right? But not all people are born into the same opportunities, in the same cities, in the same social economic situations, different family nucleuses, etc. So I get that, and I'm very appreciative. So mom, dad, sister, if you ever watch this, I love you guys. Thank you for everything that you've done for me. All right. So thank you for coming tonight. I encourage you to give these things some thought. Listen to your intuition. Be intentional. Step out of your comfort zone. When time's required, put in extra effort. If you want to stay in touch, if you have any questions, feedback, let me know. Send me an email. If you'd like to get together for coffee on campus, we can do that. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm going to start a private LinkedIn group for former students. If you're not one of my former students but would like to be part of that, let me know. Send me an email and let me know that too. And thank you all for coming tonight.